one. Is it working? No. Agora tá funcionando. We'll do this in English. It is a great pleasure for me being here with Daniela. Daniela is one of the leading experts in AI in the world. It must sound like an exaggeration, but I don't think so. She's one of the 12 people that was invited to advise US President Joe Biden on AI strategy, and she's also founder and CEO of Dedfined.AI, a company, and we'll talk much about it. But I'll start asking you, Daniela, about customer experience in Latin America. How can AI help it?
Thank you, Murilo. It's a pleasure to be here. Customer experience in Latin America is behind in terms of development because the big builders of AI, which are in North America, so the United States and China, they usually build conversational AI, which is the best tool, and I will explain very quickly which conversational AI is in a bit. They develop these technologies based on the GDP ranking. And that was very obvious when I was back in Microsoft as well, when we were developing language roadmaps to launch technologies in certain countries. So usually you go by market ranking, and if a language falls in, or a country falls into any GDP beyond 15, it's obviously that the resources involved and the time to market will be slowed down. So in this case, so just to explain, customer experience customer experience in AI, the best example is conversational AI, which is basically the replacement of the old IVR experience when you call a contact center or customer support of to address any problem, and you have a machine first, where you have to push some buttons to get through a decision tree, to get to something. And I can tell you, even in the United States, the experience is horrible. You call banks to understand what's going on your card. Why is it not working?
Same thing in Brazil. Same thing.
No, it's also in the United States because it trickles down between. So the selection is market size and market GDP, and followed by domain. So if it's a domain of the industry, even though banking is a large domain, if it's a domain that is less general population, consumer product kind of thing, it also gets pushed down in the prioritization roadmap. So conversational AI is now the new technology to interact like you're interacting with humans. You no longer have to say a word to direct the experience to the next thing. You can say, my credit card is not working, or I activated, there is a problem with the activation of my card. Believe it or not, this whole thing would be impossible a few years ago. The thing with Latin America, it's still very dependent, just like Europe, on American technology. And also because languages, like the largest speaking languages are obviously Portuguese and Spanish, but in the conversational AI aspect, because there is different layers in the modules, every country has a dialect, every region has its own dialect, and that needs to be represented in the data. And if it's not, the system doesn't work.
This is really important, and your company goes right into that. Maybe you should tell everybody, one of the cases that Dedfined.AI, they go about creating from scratch the data. So maybe if you could tell about the voice speaking product you made in France, maybe should be good.
Yeah, so we are the largest marketplace of training data for AI ethically sourced. I like to say ethically sourced because the way that's really a big banner, a big differentiator against our competitors, because everything we do, and in this case, we either crowdsource the data or we bring data from partners, but it's all consented, paid for, anonymized, and no copyright infringement. So these are really important aspects when you're addressing the data, let alone the representation, like the demographic representation, age representation. So with this marketplace that we've been building for 7 years since I started the company, and it's not just voice data, we have voice, text, image, video, and now tabular data, which is more structured data. We thought we were in a good position to apply to the government of Portugal funding program during the pandemic for recovery and resilience after the pandemic in the country. And we are very, very thrilled and honored to be awarded a program of 34.5 million euros of investment, of which the government of Portugal invests 75% to a consortium. So we have a group of universities, other companies. We are building conversational AI precisely to address low digitally resourced languages. And low digital resource languages is doesn't have to do with the number of speakers. So countries like Brazil is lucky to be on number 12 on the GDP ranking. So there is quite some offerings from American companies to Brazilian Portuguese, but they don't handle the different dialects. So the dialects from Amazonas, from the north, from the south, because every state has its own. If you go to the Spanish-speaking countries in Latin America, that's really greenfield. There's very few things done. What we're doing is to tackle these types of less resourced languages available in the internet, meaning not the language but the dialect change, the idiosyncrasy of the country, and help develop. But my urge is that with the AI development state that we are now, every country should own it. Every country should own it. Argentina, Brazil, Guatemala, Chile, Peru, everybody should start developing these types of technologies internally, whether they are text or image for language, and be less dependent from American technologies to come here and do it for you.
This is so interesting. Dedfined.AI claims to have interviewed more than 1 million people to build these databases. And this is a question I'm going to ask for you. You have a trade-off. You can get a database that is ready, and you can go build yourself. Building yourself, I think, is more expensive. And what else could you tell us about this difference?
Exactly. Building yourself is expensive, but not everything requires the amount of data and the amount of computing power like you see in ChatGPT, for example. Building speech recognition for a language, which is conversational AI. So conversational AI, just to make a step back, it's actually 4 modules. You have a speech recognition module that understands voice, transfers it to text, and we have that in we are all already doing that with our Siri, our Android phones that we're using in American technologies, right? Then that understands the intent of the text, converts into, it gives it an answer to it. That's natural language understanding. Then you have a text-to-speech module that grabs the output of the intent, which is the answer, and turns into a synthetic voice. So every single aspect of these modules require data. And the hardest part is the data part, which now, that's what we do. We build a whole business around it because it's a different skill set from hiring a machine learning team, which is actually, even in the machine learning team, It's a specific skill. It's speech engineers and speech scientists to handle the voice component. It's NLU engineers, or not data scientists. It's natural language understanding. It's natural language processing type of talent. And then, of course, you have ML ops and things like that. But the point is, the data part, there are, companies like ours handle that. And that's 80% of the work. The rest of the 20% can be done really by a small team of 10, 20 people, depending on the domain you want to handle.
That's amazing. Well, let me talk about a little on generative AI, ChatGPT, and all this summer of AI, as you call it, yesterday. And yesterday, Daniela was telling that if she was asked 1 year ago if we will be at this point of development that we are, she would tell, no, it would take like 10 years. And I would also like to remember another analogy that the JC Deco, Pierre, yesterday, he said that we are working with AI for a couple of years then, but suddenly your Renault Clio turned into a Ferrari. So, and we won't be able to drive it the same way. The Ferrari, you can go accelerating in the next day. So it's a moment that everybody's like, whoa. And what is your view on that? And also, as you were advising and you participate in lots of commissions that discuss regulation, what is your recommendations? How are you feeling?
So it's actually, you're asking me two questions. On that comment I made yesterday about if you had asked me last year, are we close to AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, and that's the state of AI where AI is as smart as humans, I would have said, and I think I have many times, oh my God, that's going to be another 10, 20 years from now. There's no way near we're there. OpenAI and a bunch of competitors and Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, Runway, they all caught us out of surprise with this. So, and we cannot undo this. So the world is, the race is up. Then you have Google launching their own Bard. You have Baidu launching their own Ernie bot. You have applications exploding at voice, text, image, video, code, and music for generative AI. So we are now, the summer AI is here, we're seeing it. At the same time, this poses, because it accelerated humankind technology evolution probably 10 or 20 years, and we are still so behind regulations. One of the things that the world is starting to ask, but it's still a big, heavy debate, is what are there applications that should be not even considered? What is right or wrong? And so one thing that I was here on a conversation in our AI talks we had yesterday that was very interesting. I think we all know what's right and wrong. That doesn't mean it's lawful or unlawful. So just because we don't have regulations yet, and because the regulations are catching up with this, doesn't mean that companies, entities developing this technology don't know what's right or wrong in our value system. That's the problem, right? We're catching up. I'm in front, I was part of that group of 12 within the task force for AI in the US, and that has ended. We have sent the report. Regulations are being built, but slowly, alongside with Europe. The truth is, we are pushing from the Consumer Technology Association the regulations to the Congress. But regardless, I think meanwhile, we all need to be responsible. We developers of AI, we all know what's right or wrong. We don't have to wait for regulations. But that said, sometimes the tactical examples, and we are bringing a white paper very soon, Redefine.AI, to push this further, is not so obvious. We just stay tuned because we are pushing very tangible best practices and until we can wait for the proper regulation to catch up.
And do you think a slowdown in the development is feasible? Do you think maybe you have to change the incentives, the economic models, because now, as you said, it's a golden rush, and it's like.
I think we can. There was this pledge, if you remember, like a month ago, where Elon Musk was also one of the signatures, probably the most high-profile signature there, and people were asking me, "Are you going to sign the pledge to pause the development of AI?" The problem is, if you look who is signing the pledge, it's not the people who can actually move the needle in the technology. And we are not having those folks involved because they are already far out monetizing these technologies. So all we can continue to do is provide more education, more awareness, more noise. And so this is what we're doing here. It's very important because people need to take ownership of their own data, take ownership of whether they should use a technology or not. And that said, I'm not saying we should not use generative AI. We definitely should, because it's proven to improve our productivity, but we need to understand what's behind the scenes, mostly at the data level, which is our job to educate customers, citizens, governments, and etc.
You have people like Ezra Klein of the New York Times, and he was telling about a concern that is even people who are developing are surprised by the achievements of their own product. And shouldn't we regulate in a way that before you release your product, you gotta be sure of how this black box operates and what are the dark sides of it? Is it feasible, or is this just a beautiful idea?
It's absolutely possible to understand what's inside the model. It is a black box to a certain extent, but we know what's in it. We know what everything starts in the data, and so explainability, which is the word used to understand what's inside, it's a combination of the timestamps of the data with the representation of that data, with the build the build that wraps up the model, and tracing back every build, because one build can go, the next build can go very wrong, and you may have to reverse back to the previous and do it again and rebuild and retrain and fine-tune. So explainability is the answer, and it's not a black box.
And is this on the agenda? Do you think we will see some of this on the regulations that are coming?
Watch for our white paper that's coming up soon, and we will also push it through the Congress, through the Consumer Technology Association. We will have a lot more details on how to do these things.
Yes, she's pointing me that our time is over, but they cheated us. We started at 17, but this conversation could go hours longer, and it was a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Murilo. It was my pleasure. Thank you.